Good afternoon. Let me first express my sincere gratitude to Professor Dutton and to my colleagues at the Oxford Internet Institute for the privilege of being associated with this exceptional event. I will present to you a few remarks on the interaction between the evolution of society and the transformation of the technologies of communication. As we know, in a historical perspective, Internet is an old technology. Remember, the ARPANET first nodes were connected in 1969. The first successful demonstration took place in 1972 at a conference in Washington, D.C. Although, for me, the technical base, the fundamental technical base, came only in 1973-75, when the gentleman on my side, Vint Cerf, and his colleague Robert Kahn developed and communicated the TCP/IP protocols, which are the basis for the architecture of the Internet. But yet, for a long time, the Internet was a playground for computer scientists and social dreamers in universities and companies under the benevolent sponsorship of DARPA. But it already embodied its two defining features. First, it was a technology of freedom based on a multi-layer architecture that made it difficult to intercept communication, and it was propelled by an open source philosophy that created a worldwide community of internauts who would defend it with their lives and with their talent. Secondly, it was fundamentally, from the very beginning, a social space, a space to socialize and share meaning and goals horizontally among peers. This is the key feature to understand the viral diffusion of the Internet over time and its extraordinary success as the platform for the social networks that have brought to life the full-fledged network society in the first decade of the 21st century. Yet by 1996, there were only about 40 million users of Internet in the world. Today, we have over 2.2 billion, and it's accelerating its diffusion because of the transformation of the communication technology platform in developing countries through the massive diffusion of the wireless platform. Here again, the 1990s were the starting point of a truly revolutionary new communication environment. In 1991, the first survey, there were about 16 million subscribers of mobile phones. Subscribers meaning numbers, okay, not phones, numbers. Today we have 5.5 billion, which is, with a conservative multiplier factor, means that about 80% of the population of the world is connected, and this is accelerating. Of course, broadband, better broadband than not. I agree with Vint that broadband is what you need and not what you are in the past. But still, with all this, the communication environment has been completely transformed. And besides, computer networks in general, and Internet networks in particular, have become the fundamental backbone of all domains of human activity. Why this acceleration from the mid-1990s onwards? There are three main series of factors. First, institutional factors, liberalization and privatization of the Internet. Second, technological innovation, particularly the development and free communication of the World Wide Web program by Tim Berners-Lee, as well as the explosion of a number of open source programs that created the technological basis for the Internet. But third, there's something else. It was the rise of the network society, a society which is our society today, whose fundamental processes are constructed in all domains of life around digital networks. And since networks have no boundaries, the network society is global. And what we call globalization is not everybody in the same system. It is a network, a global network of global networks. This is globalization. And because Technology is diffuse when individuals and organizations appropriate the technologies, when these technologies fit their needs and interests. It's not that engineers create the technology and then that's it. Usually, most people twist the technology in a different way, in unpredictable moments and unpredictable forms of using the technology. They like and appropriate the technology when they are free to tinker with the technology to make it more apt to their needs and values. And this is actually a very positive development. Imagine otherwise a society designed by engineers. It's only something worse, which is engineering designed by social scientists. And so the demand for massive demand for networks was met by the supply of network technologies, and particularly of internet networks in a synergistic upward spiral. I documented first in my trilogy, The Information Age in 1996-2000, then in subsequent books in the last decade, the formation of interactive networks, digital networks powered by the internet, at the heart of business, the network, and what I analyze as the network enterprise, as a key factor in globalization, as a network of networks. In communication, the shift from mass communication to mass self-communication, and the hybridization between the two forms of mass communication. In science and technology, the formation of knowledge networks. In the financial networks, as the volatile heart of global capitalism. And in network social movements and internet-based politics as the new actors of social change. So it is this convergence between technology, social organization, and institutional dynamics around the networking logic that characterizes the dominant social structure of our time, the network society. A society that would not and could not exist without the internet, as the industrial society was built on the distributive power of energy via the electrical engine. Internet is the information engine of our network society. But there is more. No technology diffuses and no social structure rises without a cultural foundation. In this particular case, the two cultural values that underlie the paramount role of the internet are the culture of individuation as the basis of human action, and the culture of sharing as the basis of human interaction, also known as sociability. The process of individuation is defined as the construction of social relationships, including strong cultural and personal ties that could be considered a form of community, social relationships that are constructed on the basis of the social actors' interests, values, and projects. It is not individualism. It's different because it is not the individuation process can be both for individuals and for organizations. It is not individualist because the project of an individual may be, in fact, defined in terms of the values of solidarity, such as social justice, women equality, of environmental preservation. But it still is individuation, meaning that in any case, it is a process in which the project is defined from the perspective of the actor, not from the institutions of the society. The process of individuation, which is fundamental in our society, is not just a matter of cultural evolution. It's not something that came from nowhere. It is materially produced by the forms of organizing economic activities and social and political life. Concretely speaking, it is based on the transformation of space, the rise of the network metropolis. It is based on the transformation of work, the formation of the network enterprise as the key business unit, and the emergence of the net workers, the workers that are, in fact, always network in the process of production and management. It is the rise of a new culture, the culture that is characterized by the shift from the culture generated in the realm of mass communication based on mass media to the culture based on internet-based creativity that characterizes the digital culture of our societies. It is also rooted, the process of individuation, it is also rooted in the crisis of the patriarchal family, with the increasing autonomy of the individual members of the family. It is also based on the substitution of media politics for mass party politics and the consequent process of personalization of politics. And is based on the globalization process as selective networking of places and processes throughout the planet. Yet, individuation does not mean isolation, or even less the end of community, because there is a second trend clearly associated. Sociability is reconstructed as network individualism and chosen communities through a quest for like-minded individuals in a process that combines online interaction with offline interaction, cyberspace and local space. Individuation is the key process in constituting subjects, individual or collective. Networking is the organizational form constructed by these subjects, meaning the network society, and the cultural form of sociability, in this case, is sharing behavior and sharing values in the network. Network technologies are therefore the platform for this social structure and this social culture, the culture of sharing. The only culture that we share in the world is the culture of sharing. We don't have a unified culture. We don't have a global culture. But we do have a layer, a cultural layer, which is the interaction between different cultures that share the value of sharing. Available evidence, endless available evidence in the internet research, shows a positive cumulative relationship between the use of the internet and the patterns of sociability. In general terms, the more sociable people are, the more they use internet. And the more they use internet, the more they develop sociability online and offline. The heavier internet users are more civically engaged. They have more intense family and friendship relationships. All this has been demonstrated by social research in the last 10 years. The media continue to ignore, because remember that only bad news are news. And they don't read any social science, they simply talk to their friends. The key for the process of the individuation is the construction of autonomy by social actors, who become subjects in the process. And they do so by defining their specific projects in interaction, but without submission, with institutions of society. Yes, autonomous individuals are usually, in society, a minority of individuals, but because of their capacity to lead and mobilize, they introduce a new culture in every domain of social life, in work and business, entrepreneurship. That's called entrepreneurship. That's the economic expression of autonomy. In the media, what we now know as the active audience is not anymore a passive audience. It is an audience that becomes first active, then creative. In internet, the creative user, the constant observation that the users are the producers of the technology in the internet. In the market, the informed and proactive consumer, including the right not to consume. In education, students as informed critical thinkers, new pedagogy based on e-learning and m-learning. In health, the patient-centered interactive health management system. In e-government, the informed participatory citizen. All these are transformations which define our new society. In social movements, cultural change from the grassroots, as in feminism, as in environmentalism, as in the new movements called the indignance movement throughout Europe or in Israel. In politics, the independent-minded citizen able to participate in self-generated political networks, such as in the Arab revolutions, such as in the new social movements that are spreading around the world as of today. For instance, the Occupy Wall Street movement that started last week and is now supported by 25 metropolitan areas, similar movements. So there is increasing evidence, both in scholarly research and in general observation, of the direct relationship between internet and the rise of social autonomy, which is the critical process of creating a new society. So ultimately, internet is a technology of freedom, both in its cultural origins and in its cultural manifestations. But this culture of freedom is not a metaphysical construct. It is rooted in the uses and orientations of freedom in a specific context, be it the social activists engaged in the battle against dictatorships, the innovators bypassing corporate structures to link up with other innovators to create cool software or new musical beauty, or can be also the culture of freedom to develop ill-oriented, destructive processes in society. To say it's a culture of freedom doesn't guarantee the uses of freedom, because the uses of freedom depend on the moral state of each society, and I would be pessimistic as of today in terms of the moral health of most of our societies. But the internet fundamentally embodies sharing meaning among individuals who are not consumed in the networks, but make the networks the projection of their dreams and the expression of their empowerment. Thank you very much for your attention.